Hey everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Today we have this beast halfway in the shop. It is a 2004 Chevy 2500 HD with the 8.1 liter big block V8. And customer complaint is the cluster. The cluster is doing some funky stuff, like on a lot of these GM trucks when they get about 10 years old. A whole bunch of issues. He said that the tachometer, the oil pressure, and the engine temp needles or gauges are either not working or erratic. Some of the illumination, the backlighting is bad, and the PRNDL display is really dim. So it has all of the common symptoms, I guess, except for he doesn't have a parasitic battery draw, which is another common cluster issue. So today we're going to fix all of these issues in-house. We're not going to send the cluster out to get it rebuilt or anything, and it'll be kind of a, DIY how to refurbish your GM truck cluster. So let's go inside the vehicle and see what this thing looks like. Alright, let's fire this bad boy up. Alright. So our PRNDL is very dim. It should be as bright as the odometer reading down here. Our tach doesn't want to do anything. It's hovering around like 200 RPM. Oil pressure. Well, I know we have oil pressure because I drove the thing here and it runs fine. And then the fuel gauge seems to be okay. The engine temp, like you said, is way off the scale. And 3 years ago, when this truck was owned by another previous owner, I did replace the speedometer, stepper motor, and the voltmeter, and those seem to be working just fine. You turn the key on, it shows 12 volts. Start the truck up. That's normal. And the temp gauge also seems to be working okay. Now, also the illumination, you can see that's bright. Tach, speedometer. If we can get a little shade in here. I'll just set it to the brightest setting. That seems to work. The illumination behind the engine temp is also out. So we have several issues here. And if you go online, on the forums, everywhere, there's a whole bunch of information online. But in this video, we'll try to combine it all together. Now before we start ripping this thing apart, if you have a bidirectional scanner, you can actually do some tests on these gauges to see which motors work, which don't. You can test the lamps. So I want to check the gauges right now. Display test. So let's see what this does. On. See, all the gauges get maxed out, and then off. On. Off. So that's interesting. The oil PSI gauge actually did go all the way up. So in this case, maybe it's not the stepper motor just for that gauge. It might actually be a signal, the oil pressure signal coming into the cluster. That's key. So actually I didn't know that before working on this vehicle here. So it seems our tach is definitely down, our engine temp motor is definitely broken, but our the oil pressure gauge actually looks to be operational. So in that case, you want to look at the live data coming into the instrument cluster to see what our oil pressure reading actually is. So I'm going to fire it up. We have to escape out of here. And that's still stuck at 0. If we go to data display, oh, we should see all of the input data. There's battery voltage, there's engine speed, there's coolant temp, should be 104. Monitored oil pressure, 0 psi. Huh. Okay, so it's not the stepper motor that's broken in here, it's the actual input for the oil pressure. So we have to diagnose that separately. But in this video, we're just doing the cluster repair and just replacing the stepper motors, illumination bulbs, and doing some soldering to get this PRNDL display back up and running. So first thing we have to do here, get this cluster out. And GM does make it pretty easy. You just need to turn the key on, get the shifter out of the way, and then get this instrument cluster panel off. Should pop right out. I wish all cars were this easy. They probably designed this thing to be very serviceable. Now we can take our, get that back in here, take a screwdriver. Now these are, I don't remember what size the little bolts are. Nope. Either 8s or 7s. I think they're 7s. Yeah, it's too big. $9.30 works just as well. There's going to be 4 securing screws. There's 1. There's 2. Make sure not to drop these anywhere. There's 3. And last but not least, get this little guy back here. I guess we should move the shifter down again. And there's just one big bulk connector. I can't see it in the camera. There it is. So just squeeze and pull. Perfect. So now that the cluster's out, let's take it to the bench and get to work. So let's start off by first taking a soft cloth, just making sure everything's clean. Alright, now you can start by taking off either the back panel or the front panel. So you just have these little clips on here, no big deal. Pop, pop, pop. Just comes off pretty easy. So this we'll set aside. Now we have our pretty cluster. So what we want to do first is manually put all these needles back down to their leftmost stop. Okay, so like that. This will ensure that your calibration is going to be spot on when we put the needles back on these motors. So in this position, I like to take my cell phone and take a picture of exact position of where all the needles are. Okay? So let's do that, and then we'll pop them off. Alright, so now that we have a picture of where the needles are, we are going to carefully pry them up with a little claw, and they should just pop right up off of the stepper motors. So this goes pretty quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. Alright, sweet. Now this whole plastic piece should come right up. So it should come up with the whole, there's kind of a plastic piece behind here. There we go. Okay, so this comes off separately. Now, so we can see our stepper motors behind this plastic covering. And now I guess we can go ahead and take off the back cover too. This is your trip reset button. We'll set that aside. Now for the back cover, again, same deal. Plastic clips all the way around. And from the front, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this comes off as an assembly. Sweet. Now our prize is the circuit board with the stepper motor. So this is what we're after. This huge assembly of electronics and bulbs and stepper motors. So we can set that on a soft surface and explore. So these motors for the speedometer read the part number X27168, and also for the voltmeter X27168. These two have been replaced before. And the other ones are C5168. You could buy a whole box of motors and replace all of them. In this case, we only have 2 that are broken: the tach and the engine temperature, right? So we're going to replace those 2, and then the PRNDL display, hopefully we can get working again, and the there's a whole bunch of illumination bulbs, and they're actually labeled, numbered. So what I want to do right now is go back to the vehicle, plug this thing in, and see which illumination bulbs aren't working, and just to, note which ones to replace. Okay, so let's plug in our circuit board. Be gentle with it, it's all exposed. So let's see here. So the gray clip goes on top here. And just, there go. It's alive. Now let's turn on our headlights and see which illumination bulbs are missing. So which ones do you see here? That one's good, that one's good. So 16 is out. These two are good. Those two are good, and then 21 and 43. So remember that, 21, 43, and 16 we're going to have to replace. Now let's see what's up with this PRNDL display while we're here. We'll turn the key on. Turn the lights off. Maybe dim it. So we don't have PRNDL display at all. And our odometer's quite dim. So I'm not seeing a PRNDL display right now. Oh, it's really, really, really dim. You can see it is on P. Yeah, so we know which illumination bulbs we have to replace. Those two up there, those are the hazard bulbs. Those are good. That one over here is the, I think, a cruise control. You can always look at the face, you know, the gauge face, and see which bulb's which. But we know that 21, 43, and wait, did this one come back to life? Okay, what the heck? Alright, we're not worried about 16, I guess. So just these two on the side, 21 and 43. So first, let's go over what parts we're going to need for this refurbishment. Here I have a whole baggie full of stepper motors and bulbs. Here's what the new stepper motors look like. You can get a pack of 6 on eBay. I'll put a link in the description. And we'll also need some bulbs. These are all sold in one package. Maybe you can find them separately, but just buy the whole kit to save yourself time and money. And so that's what we'll need. You also need a good soldering iron. I prefer a butane powered. I got mine at Radio Shack back when they were still in business around here. And also some good rosin core solder. This stuff is thin, it flows really well. Usually I don't even use flux because it's you know, it works as is. So let's get to it. So I'll start by unsoldering some of the illumination bulbs, and we'll put the new ones on, and then we'll go to the stepper motors. Alright, let's fire up our soldering iron. This takes only a few seconds to warm up. When the flames turn to you know, red glowing, that's when you know ready to go. Let that warm up. So we're doing these two bulbs right here, and this stepper motor down here. Actually, you can see the problem already. It's completely desoldered. Wah, wah, wah. Okay. Well, I guess we can just touch those up, huh? Same with the tack. Interesting. Well, you know what? I think in this case we could just reflow the solder joints and it'll fix the problem. Or, you know, we can replace them too, but I'll show you how to replace at least one of them. So First, let's go for these illumination bulbs. You can tin the soldering iron by putting just a touch of solder on there. And then shaking off the excess. Nice and shiny. I know how to get the lighting better in here. But then we just kind of turn it down. Touch it right to the base of the lamp. Oh, there's one. There's two. So our lamp is free. Let's do the same to this guy right here. Just put a little pressure sideways. One. And same from the other side. Two. Sweet. So this motor here, I guess we can, might as well while we're here. So these two pins are already free, so we just touch the soldering iron and pull. And these two guys, and the motor just pops off. So we'll be replacing at least that one. Let's turn this guy off. Set it somewhere where you don't burn yourself. So we have two bulbs and one motor. So to get the old bulb out of the holder, just take a little pick and undo these legs. They're just bent around. Oh, come on, little guy. You can do it. Wow. You can just try pulling the bulb out. Oh, doing it the wrong way. The legs actually fold under. Tiny little things. And then the bulb just kind of sits in there like a little bug. So here's the new bulb. We'll pop her in like so. Whee! It's kind of doing a little split, and then fold the legs down. Try and get zoomed in and get it in the shot here. Alright, so like that. And then the little ends you can snip off. Snip off with some scissors. There's one. There's two. Oh, come on. There's two. It's always harder on camera. Alright, and fold these guys up into their little homes. Make sure they're not too long so they don't touch each other. Bend them in there. Then all we have to do is put this guy back on here and solder it back on. So what we do, get our soldering iron back up and running. Zoom you guys in a little bit. So first I want to build up these little puddles of solder. So just melt, wait for it to heat up. Like so. Same with the other side, like that. Now, when we put our bulb back on, there's one side. Okay, shift it over just a hair. You can always remelt and shift like that. Just ever so slightly more. Okay, like that. Now this guy. And that's it. That bulb is steady on there. While we're here, let's reflow these little puddles. We'll add a little solder. Beautiful. See if we can get this guy faster. Bulb number 2. One leg. 2 legs. Hands free. Throw those out. There's our new unit. And just slide her in. I think you can get this whole service done at companies that offer this, reman service. I think United Radio is one of them. Eric at South Main Auto is a fan of them. There we go. Fold that guy over and this guy right here. Snip it off a little bit more. Beautiful. Now we just do the same drill. There's one leg. That one didn't quite take. Add a touch more right here. And that's 2. Alright, perfect. Bulbs are in. Let's get a new motor in here. So it's the same drill basically. Take your new unit, note the new part number. And it does have locating pins on the back, so you're going to stick it in like that. Make sure the pins are straight to begin with so it finds its home. Okay, just about. So that should pop right in if the solder holes are clean on the other side. It should be, since you just took the new one out, but if they're not, you can always use your soldering iron to clean those up. Now we just bend the pins inward on the back side, and then it should be a piece of cake to just reflow the soldered joints on the back, and we should be good to go. Let's see. There's 1. There's 2. These butane soldering irons are fantastic. They just heat up so nicely and everything flows really nicely. Oh, look at that. So that is solidly in place. Happy with that. So 2 bulbs, 1 new motor down here. So if you go on YouTube, this is why YouTube is awesome and amazing. You search GM Prindle, you get like 20 hits. These clusters are just notorious for going bad, and a lot of people have a lot of ideas on how to fix them. I went through some of the videos, and my favorite was this one right here, 2005 Chevy Suburban Prindle Lighting Fix by Rich W. It's only a minute and 40 seconds long, but it is very, very informative.
Trucks. This instrument panel is from an 05.
And the punchline is where he shows the resistors that cause this issue.
Cluster. The Prindle here wasn't lighting up.
Let's see. This looks exactly the same as our cluster.
After looking very closely at the board on both sides, discovered that here in this area here, let's see if we can get a decent shot of it. These resistors here, a lot of the solder joints were cracked. Wherever you see a blue dot is where I resoldered it.
So it looks like those 7.
And plugged it back into the truck, and the Prindle works beautifully good.
So now going back to our cluster, we see that around this group of 7 resistors, it's kind of like brown. So there's definitely some heat buildup on the circuit board, and it's changed the color of the backing. Also some brown over here. So I'm thinking we'll go over and look closely at these solder joints and see if we can find any bad ones. Now, I already found one on this guy. If you can kind of actually lift up the entire resistor, so that joint is definitely just cracked in half. So I think we'll touch a little solder on all these guys. We just kind of do a little tuck test on the rest of them. Oh, that one came right off. Oops. So let's reflow those joints. So first, let's resolder this guy right here by the bulb that I broke off. Now for this, we want lower heat, and definitely tin your soldering iron real well to facilitate heat transfer. Get all this junk out of here. You can even wipe it off on the paper towel. Okay. So that guy right there. Oh man, this is a little tougher than I thought it would be. We're kind of stuck to the board, I guess. Try gently. There might help to push down on the resistor while soldering it. Make sure it sticks to the circuit board. Same on this side. Okay, like that. Okay, I think that guy's good. Let's touch up these. Again, we can do the tuck test again, and if they stick, they stick. And if it fixes the problem, then don't worry about the other ones. Let's go back to the truck. Let's go back to the truck, plug it in, see if everything works. If it does, we're golden. Alright, let's plug this guy back in here, cross our fingers. Alright, sweet. So illumination, bulbs are good. All the bulbs are bright. Fantastic. Let's go for the PRNDL. Sweet. Haha. Love it. There's dim, there's bright. Got everything that the customer asked for. Awesome. I am very happy with that. So all we have to do now is put everything back together, put the needles in the right spots, and plug her in, do a sweep check. This guy should be good to go. And the oil pressure problem, that's probably the oil pressure sending unit. We can do a separate video on how to check that. So we're going to put this guy back in reverse order of disassembly. First the backing plate, then our circuit board. There's a locating pin, 3 locating pins right there. Now our plastic piece, gently lower that down. It should clip in like so. 3 in the bottom. That looks perfect. Okay, now the gauge face. Again, if there's any dust on it, just lightly brush it off. You don't want to return a dusty instrument cluster to the customer, right? There's that. 2, 3. 3 little clips that hold the face on. Now's the fun part. All the needles. Let's make sure everything's in. Everything's happy. So the 2 big needles go on the tack and the speedo. I think they're the same size. They are. If you remember, our speedo was wherever it is. Make sure the needles are, you turn the motors to its leftmost position, and then we'll have to look at our picture and position these needles exactly where they are. I remember, first time doing this, I put the speedometer needle back at 0, and it was showing like 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, or over the actual speed. So I had to tear it all apart, you know, reset it, and do that. So we're going to look at our picture. So first let's just do those. That's how they were. Look from up top. There's one. There's two. There's three. And that's four. Let's see right there. Now our speedometer and tach were like that. Kind of like there. And our tach. Right there. And our trans temp. Right about there. Alright. Awesome. Oh no. I forgot to put the thing back in. I think we can squeeze it by. Whew! Close one. Don't forget to put that in. Now, last but not least, use a little compressed air to blow this guy out. Pop it back in. I guess before doing this step, we can plug it in, test it out. But I'm just going to take my chances here and button this guy back together. And there you have one complete rebuilt GM cluster. Takes, I don't know, less than an hour to do everything. And let's go pop it in the truck, test it out. Alright, cluster is in. Let's do key on. Let's see our prindle, nice and bright. Let's do the special function gauges test. Let's do on. Okay. Let's see, the oil PSI and the engine temp didn't quite go all the way to the max. I don't know if that's proper or not. It seems to be good. Kind of exercise them. I don't know if the oil PSI is good enough or not, because I think they should all go to their maximum position. So they all go to 0, 0, 0. That's it on the red. I'm going to have to take this truck for a test drive and see if our, you know, when the engine's running, it should be around 210. See if that's where it actually is. That's the only way to really tell. Alright. Now let's escape out of here. fire this thing up. RPMs work. Voltmeter, fuel. Alright. So, I guess that's the end of this video. So we saw how to replace illumination bulbs, replace stepper motors, and get the PRNDL display to get nice and bright. So there are a lot of videos on YouTube on how to do each part separately, but I thought I'd make one to cover the entire procedure, kind of refurbish the cluster, and get you back on the road. So I do appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.